Hello and welcome to Kinsei-Do Corner. Have you ever wondered how to unlock your full potential and live your healthiest, most fulfilling life? Then this podcast is here to help you achieve just that. We dive deep into the world of health and performance, exploring how to move better, feel better, and live a healthier, more fulfilling life. I chat with inspiring coaches, athletes, health experts, and high performers from all walks of life to learn from their stories, mindsets, and lifestyle choices. Whether you're an experienced high performer or new to the world of health and well-being, I'm in your corner to guide you on the path to being the healthiest, happiest, and highest performing version of yourself. Let's go. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to Kinsei-Do Corner. For those of you who've been listening to this show for a while, you'll know I started speaking to people in the functional fitness space here in Jakarta. I branched out. I talked to coaches. I talked to members. Over the years, other people have come on the show. For example, book authors. A doctor from the States came on. But in general, I've always kind of stuck to the functional fitness space and the CrossFit scene, so to say. So today I'm really happy that I can branch out a little bit from that again and welcome Joan Valls to the show. He's a tennis player, a tennis coach, um, and we'll talk about all things connected to tennis. And make them also transferable to you, to your life. So the mindset, the things he's learned, the things he's developed, the characteristics, the the properties that he's developed as a tennis player and tennis coach transfer well to life and transfer to high performance in life. So welcome to the show, John. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah, thank you
Johan.
so much.
Thanks for
Thanks.
asking me
I'm
to be
excited
here.
to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, yeah. So it's awesome. It's awesome to have you, and I'm really excited to talk to you because I've known you for, well, you've been in Jakarta now for a good year, so I've kind of known you a little bit here and there, but I don't really know that much about your background, and obviously the same goes for my listeners. So really happy to dive into that first. So I I mentioned you are a tennis coach, a tennis player. Obviously, you are a tennis coach here in Jakarta. That is your profession, um, and you didn't just come here from nothing. So you started coaching, or you were coaching in the Middle East before coming here. You played in the States, if I understand correctly, competitively. So maybe let's start with your journey. Walk us through kind of what led you to tennis, and then ultimately what led you to being here.
Yeah, okay. So the journey started quite early. My tennis journey when I was 5 years old in my hometown club, and basically everything moved quite fast from there because I just remember those years that I was really enjoying going to the club, and I started to get into a few of the weekly sessions that they were doing there. I just started to have a lot of fun with friends that I started to make there while playing tennis. It was just obviously a fun thing to do. And from there on, to be honest, I never can say I left tennis. It's always been in my daily life. I can say, but after I started my first few years in my tennis club there, maybe things started to get a little bit more serious, and I wanted to pursue a bit of more of a serious training program, and that's when I joined a high performance academy when I was 12 years old, and there I was like training quite a lot. I was training 3 hours of tennis a day and 1 hour of fitness a day, um, or every day, competing as well. So there is when I started to improve significantly because just I increased the hours by double or triple on what I was doing in my class. So that went from when I was since I was 12 until I was 18, and I started to play well local tournaments around Spain and also a few ITF juniors, and then is when I started to realize tennis is not an easy sport to make a living. I think I was quite realistic about that with myself, and I got the opportunity to go to America with a tennis scholarship, and then it's when I decided that was going to be the right move for me to do, and that's how I went to America with a full scholarship that allows me to complete 4 extra years, also training a lot. I was keep training 3-4 hours a day because in the States also they give you like hard training and high intensity training. So I could combine those things with my studies with tennis, which is what I loved. And it made me do those 4 years of my undergraduate degree as well as my master's degree, and then just summarizing very quickly, I finished my degree, and then when everything is finished, you go to real life and realize I had to realize what is it that I wanted to do. I remember the feeling of or the thinking of, well, I enjoy coaching, so that's how I stick to coaching. I stick to tennis, and I started to get my first coaching jobs in the States. I work for. They transferred me to another Rafa Nadal Academy in Kuwait, which is what you mentioned earlier, and then I stayed there 3 years, and then is when I got this offer to come to Indonesia at the British School Jakarta as a head of tennis. So that's kind of my journey, a little bit summarized, but yeah.
Oh, awesome! Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, that leaves me a couple of things that I could pick up and kind of go into. So you said you started when you were 5, so that's pretty young. There's and working at a school now, you would probably know this, and maybe you support this. There's a big emphasis nowadays on making sure that kids, especially at this age, play a broad variety of sports and don't specialize too early. Was that the case for you as well, or was it tennis all the way from 5?
No, actually, this is a good question because I actually try to explain nowadays to parents and players that this is an important thing to do when they're like starting and they're very young. I actually did the same. I remember I combined tennis with handball, and I did a little bit of football as well. But those are the sports that I was sticking with until I was 12. And when I was 12, to be honest, is where I made the decision of okay, what I want to choose. Because basically my parents came up to me and told me, we need to choose something because now you're gonna move from primary to high school, and it's not gonna allow you to do all of them. And then it's when at 12 I decided, okay, I just want to do tennis. But I think yes, I think it is important to practice different sports at the beginning, and maybe not just focus from one sport only since you are a very very young kid.
Yeah, because there's many. Well, obviously, the reason people do it is because they think they can accelerate their learning, but actually, there's so many transferable skills and transferable physical attributes that you learn at the young age from doing multiple things. Um, was it a choice for you to do tennis or handball, or were you clearly much better at tennis than at any of your other sports?
I think I did not see it at the time of what am I better at. I honestly think that my decision went from as a young kid what do you enjoy the most, and I just went for tennis because I felt I was enjoying maybe a little bit years with friends as well there, and also competing and everything. But tennis at the end of the day, it was something that it was super accessible to me. I had my club so close from my house, like 5 minutes away. So I remember my childhood days like being in the club a lot, and just going there at all times.
Okay, I see. Because often, um, especially as you say, at this age, it became you needed to make one choice. You couldn't keep up the volume of doing two, and I understand, as you said, right, 3 hours a day of sports specific training plus another hour of fitness, plus obviously going to school. So it would be literally impossible to do that for two different sports. You'd be spending 8 hours of physical training, and then, well, when do you go to
Yeah.
school, and when do you sleep? Um, so, and then from 12 to 18, you trained at such a high volume, and as you said, you made great progress, as one would expect. One thing that you mentioned about choosing a career, um, and obviously, what surprised me was when you said it's difficult to make a career from tennis, and obviously, I understand that, um, to make it to the top, to make it into, let's say, the professional game, the professional circuit, is very, very difficult, and only very few people get that chance. But at least my understanding, looking from the outside, is that tennis is actually one of those sports where you can make a relatively good living if you make it to the top. Handball, actually, as an example, might be one where that's not really the case, right? You might be in the Olympic team, and yet you can almost not make a living because there just isn't so much money and popularity in handball. So what was the thinking, or were you trying to make it as a professional, and and you saw early, let's say early on, around 17, 18, that you probably not going to make it, or was there another, let's say, important event that kind of said, okay, nope, I have.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it's a couple of, but as soon as I started this tennis journey of deciding, okay, I want to just do tennis, high number of hours on the court, fitness, my parents behind me paying for all this, I was quite aware of what was going on. I think as a kid, played from the very beginning, all those trainings, all the players that I practice with in the daily basis. I think also made me realize, like you said, what's the whole picture of the sport, and yeah, I got to play with some very good players as well, and yeah, you cannot stop thinking or stop comparing on you with other people. So yeah, to be honest, at the end of the day, I was realizing as I went from 15, 16, 17, 18, that that was a very tough sport to really go up in the next level, or make a living of it. Of course, like when you're a child, you can dream and imagine of being a tennis player and making it there. And I'm not gonna say it didn't happen, because I think any kid can dream of these things. But yeah, when it came closer to when I was 17, 18, I started to realize, like, there's a lot of effort, not only from me, that I have to do all these things every day, showing up to practice, school, and combining all these things, maybe probably even having a different life than my childhood friends had, that maybe they did not choose to go so hard in a certain sport, just had more like a, let's say, a normal life. I had to, also miss things that as a kid maybe you also live, that I did not had the experience to do it. But yeah, I think when I was 17, 18, and the opportunity to go to America came up, I think that was the decision of me saying, okay, this is really, really difficult to make it. I'm just gonna do a few more years in a very good level, and then stop. That was kind of my mindset.
Okay, so, um and obviously, looking back, kind of zooming out and looking at it as a big picture, the sport and all the sacrifices that you made as a child growing up, not having the kind of time, the kind of free time that your friends have, all of that ultimately culminated in you being able to go to the States and study, and get a university degree on a, maybe not what you dream of as a child, but it is a very, valuable, gain, right? A very valuable trade-off, because not not everyone, not many people can afford to go to a top university, and then in the States, for especially where it's really expensive. So this, it kind of, I'm not going to say it paid off fully, but you can see some result, some payoff coming out of all the years that you've put in. That's awesome. And then you obviously, you mentioned you switched to, or you kind of after studying, was your degree anything related to coaching, sport, tennis, anything in like that?
Just decided, okay, I'm just gonna do a business management degree, which is more a generic degree, and I can take also that scholarship. So yeah, I mean, it is, but it is not really a sports degree. Yeah.
Okay, so none of what you did at university prepared you for what you.
If it prepared me, you said, yeah, definitely, it prepared me. I mean, it's something that I recommend a lot of athletes that perhaps choose the way of, okay, I'm gonna put more hours in to try to be as good as I can, and at the end maybe you realize the difficulty of that sport. I always recommend the option of going to the States with a scholarship if you can, because eventually going to the States still makes you perform at a high level, and you still improve so much in the sport that you do, that there are many athletes that after college, after going to college in the States, still can have the opportunity to decide, okay, I'm gonna give it one more try to try to be professional. So it gives you that option. What I eventually chose when I was 17, 18, that I didn't realize at the moment, but once I was there, I was realizing that this college tennis thing is really still a tennis career that you can take a couple more years and have a chance later. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I see. So the kind of the training and the entire, let's say, environment at college for tennis was still at such a high level that you were still able to improve further as a player. It's not, you didn't peak in your academy, and then just kind of coasted through university. You were still growing as a player as well as a person, obviously.
Yeah, definitely, it kept me going, and I think I also mentally improved way more, because when you are coming from Europe, playing tournaments, tennis is a very individualistic sport. You are always, alone on the court. Yeah, perhaps you're playing with your friend on the other side of the court, but when you're playing a match, it's only you. So it's kind of a lonely sport when you are performing. And what gave me in the States is that the system that is created there is completely a team sport. So I was in a team of seven, 8, 9 players, where you were fighting for the same thing. You were fighting for the victory as a team. You were trying to get as many points for the team, and that gives me that extra mental strength on me, or let's say more confidence, because I felt more. It felt more like a family thing, that I was not alone. So that's definitely also a part of the learning process that I learned in the States, that also can shape you into have a better mentality to then, if you want, try to become a pro, without any guarantee, of course, but at least try. Because definitely my experience in college, it was super good. It was really, really enriching and very, very, yeah, in a very good level. But also there were universities that are even in a better level with better players. So definitely there's a handful of options, if you choose that pathway as well.
Mm. Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense, and I think you mentioned mentality and how this experience has shaped you as a person. So I think this is a great place for us to kind of switch or segue into this whole thing about, let's say maybe zooming out from tennis and what tennis and what kind of training at a high level, committing so many hours, so much of your life to something, what that kind of taught you outside of just tennis, right? So of course you're training 3 hours a day, as you said, from age 12, which is really young. I mean, my son is almost 12, and I can't see him doing 3 hours of anything with any kind of, well, maybe some things, but um, so obviously that it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a certain, almost to say it takes a certain kind of personality, um, and certain kind of mindset. So maybe let's kind of go there and kind of dissect what you learned from tennis, that kind of either from tennis, it's the game itself, or from the kind of the environment and the circumstances you were in, that you either apply in your own life, or that you now see has benefits in your life, or that you even just try and teach to the students who obviously haven't had that experience, but maybe they can benefit.
Well, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem. So um, being involved in a pursuit of something, right? It doesn't matter what it is. In this case, it was tennis, but being involved so heavily and so strongly in a pursuit and in getting better, or getting being the best that you can at something, um, that requires a certain kind of a certain mindset, a certain attitude and way of thinking. And I'm wondering how this now translates into your daily life. Like what has tennis taught you? I would assume it's taught you discipline and kind of long term focus on a goal and all these things. But yeah, love to hear from
Yeah.
you what you kind of took away.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that sports can give you is to, at the end of the day, maybe you have to learn that a lot of things are like to become better at the sport that you're practicing. In my case, tennis. And I think it's something that in my personal opinion, or how I learned, it was as I went. Because when I started this journey of getting so many hours in fitness and tennis, to be honest, I was not really aware of where I was getting into it. Like I said before, it was more an intuition as a kid, that I was really enjoying that sport, and I had a lot of really good moments because I loved playing in it. So when you start like putting all those hours in, you start like playing more competitions, and you start having a bit of pressure in those competitions, and you have the feeling of what is winning and how you feel when you're losing, which I didn't take it very well personally. Those experiences start shaping you, right? And like I said before as well, in the States for me is where I realized playing in a team environment made me much stronger mentally, because I feel, like I said, surrounded by my teammates, and I felt I could give the best out of me on the court in perhaps situations that are not favorable in a match, that you feel a bit more nervous. Having those teammates watching you next to the court and supporting you made me realize perhaps I'm more like a team player than a individualistic player, that is what really tennis that what tennis is. From all those experiences, is at the end of the day is positive, and I try to share it with players that I coach nowadays, or I have coached in the past, because the experience that I have is that when you are a player, you don't realize the day to day, and maybe you don't appreciate it so much. And when you are, because you have to move on, you then realize perhaps I could have appreciated more. So that is what I try to transmit to my players, or yeah, whoever I come across with, to try to appreciate those moments when you're a player, because sometimes when you're putting so many hours, like I did, sometimes you put so much extra pressure on you that you have to be so much better, or you have to do so much better, and that extra pressure, if you don't know how to handle it well, can actually affect negatively on you in the competition day, because you lose that confidence. So I think appreciating things when you are an athlete, it's really important that you have somebody telling you that, either your coach or either your any family member or friend. If you have like a good circle, inner circle, is I think it's really important to become the best version of you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true, and I think that is not only applicable to sports. That kind of goes for everything. I kind of obviously I didn't have any sort of involvement in high performance sports. So while you were talking, the kind of the situation I think back in my mind is basically at a previous job when things were just really stressful, and in that moment you just really don't like it, right? There's high stress. You're working extremely long hours. The clients seem to be, or the colleagues seem to be demanding and unfriendly, um, and everything is just so challenging. But later, now looking back, and they always say like hindsight is 2020, but you look back and it's like it's almost a nice memory. It's almost like I was able to get through this really tough situation, and I only remember, well, I remember the kind of the tough times, but I mostly remember the the few good times when I don't know, when we had achievement or successes, when certain colleagues or team members helped to achieve something that was maybe, not to say unachievable, but was very difficult, and these kind of things. And it's such a valuable skill to be able to not only have this later, right? You want to, if you can cultivate this in your mindset that, okay, I'm in a hard time now, but A, that will pass, it'll go away, and B, um, I'll come out stronger, and I'll even appreciate what this experience taught me, or so to say did to me, because yeah, because you come out as a better version of yourself. um, I like the point you kind of touched on a little bit, that yeah, winning or rather losing was not your was not your strong suit. I'm I'm sure you've seen the speech that Roger Federer gave at this university a couple of months ago, where he talked about that even he, who everyone thinks was only winning all the time, um, he says, I think he says he won or he lost almost half of the points that he played, right? So almost, yeah, about 45 or 46% or whatever of the points that he played, he didn't win. um, and in such cases it is so critical to be able to, um, yes, be in that moment, but when the moment is done, forget about it right away. Reset your mind, and kind of look to tackling the next, so that what happened in the past doesn't negatively impact what's going to happen next. And that's, um, I don't know. You saw the speech, I assume. What did you think in general of when Roger Federer was talking about all these things? Did it resonate with you? Did you think, no, he's painting a picture that's maybe a bit too?
No, no, yeah, I just, but yeah, I saw the speech and I actually really liked it. I think it was a really good speech because it talked a lot about failure as well, and how he overcame that failure by players at the time that were Djokovic and Nadal, that were making him have a hard time, because he was he was unstoppable for the past few years before they came in as very young players. So it was really good the point that he was making, where he had to realize that those players were there for him to get better, and that he would not have become what we all know he has become if it was not for well, exactly for those specific players, Nadal, Murray, Djokovic, and he talks about really well about how he struggled to accept that because he was the number one, and suddenly somebody else was taking that spotlight, and yeah, this is definitely a good message to give away to maybe young athletes that are trying to put all those hours in. That it's not an easy journey, and sometimes you need to get close to those to you, because that actually is another thing that he talks about the inner circle, that if it wasn't for them, he would not have been as strong as he was mentally. So definitely in a much lesser level, I had those experiences of feeling lost on the court, or suffering in certain moments, or not liking to lose, and having difficulty of getting out of that mentality. Those moments are tough when you are an athlete, and like I said before, I think in my case, from my perspective, I felt that I maybe needed that extra support somehow to have a better way out of those difficult moments when you are an athlete. But I think it's something that every athlete goes through it, and as a coach, I of course nowadays I try to help and support those aspects that come along in my players.
Yeah, it's such a good point that you mentioned that, and I to be honest, I didn't remember this part, or maybe I didn't pick it up from his speech. That basically he is the player that he was. Well, was, he's obviously retired. He was able to be the player that he was because these other two or three or a handful of other players were also so good, and they kept pushing him. They kept basically pushing each other to levels that hadn't been seen before, in a sense. So, and I know this isn't tennis, but I guess in a way it's similar to this whole Messi Ronaldo debate. Those two have been pushing each other for 15 years now, and that's why they are where they are. Maybe if there had been only Messi and no Ronaldo, he would have easily been the best, but maybe he wouldn't actually be as good as he's now, or vice versa. Ronaldo without Messi, simply because there was just like this rivalry or this sense of competition to always try and be better than the other. And this is important because I think it also transcends to other areas of life, right? So you can also be thinking about, okay, it can be, of course it can feel nice if you're clearly the best performer in your team, and then you get all the promotions and all the critical successes of the team are on you. But maybe if there are a couple of other people who are equally good, you are all lifting each other to a higher level, and if you see it from that way, you don't feel threatened by these people, but you actually relish, or you enjoy, and their you seek out the threat that they pose, so that you all can be better. It's a really important thing that I think, and as you said, you make this point to the players that you coach, um, and it's important because I noticed this with my son and other kids. They don't No one likes to lose, right? And obviously when you come up against another strong team, so in my son's case, he loves football, so when he comes up against another strong team and they lose, maybe, or maybe they even get beaten badly, everyone's in a bad mood. Everyone's like, oh, either this didn't go well, or the referee, or this was unfair, or whatever. But actually, if you are always only playing against teams that you can wipe the floor with, then you're not gonna get much better. And it requires a little bit of a shift in thinking, to appreciate.
Yeah, I think it happens. Yeah, in all sports you have those examples of this super athlete and this other super athlete that push each other and start to become better, and the people under them is also raising that level. So at the end of the day, that I think that's the hard part to realize when you are there in that moment, or at least maybe it was more for me of the appreciation aspect that we spoken about, but definitely, yeah, you have numbers of examples that resemble this mentality aspect that we're talking about. And I think tennis is an incredible mentally tough sport. First of all, because it's a very individualistic sport. It's not a team sport, and I think just that makes it even harder because you have to be pushing yourself every day and pretty much alone, doing the fitness for you. It gives you that sense of you just doing this for yourself to get better, only you on that specific skill set that you have, or that goal that you have. It's less of a team spirit. So I think tennis, like other sports, are similar sports, have that extra mental aspect that you have to really have the experience or somebody, like, again, like I said, around you to guide you a little bit, because it can be difficult.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's it kind of leads nicely into a way of wrapping up our conversation. And because what I typically want people to take away are kind of little either practical tips or just concepts that they can apply for themselves. And I think this is such a critical point, whether you are a parent trying to teach these lessons to your kids, or, as we said, even for yourself. um, Listeners in my demography are probably not at the age anymore where any kind of sporting sporting glories are to be chased, but this applies to life in general, right? So seeing seeing threats, seeing scenarios where you could lose, where you could fail, as not as a bad thing, but as something that gives you the chance to be the best you can be, or become a little better at what you're currently than what you currently are and have. Um, and this is such a valuable lesson, and it's great that, again, sport teaches us this. Or a lesson that comes from sport applies to life. Um, Maybe just as a kind of way of really just wrapping this up, if you if someone, and I'm sure this happens to you, someone comes to you, a parent comes to you with their child who's, let's say, 10, let's say 12, at the age that you were, where you went from kind of recreational player to serious player, and um, they want to know what is your, let's say, honest opinion on characteristics that the child, the person should develop to have the strongest chance of making it. Not necessarily the tennis skills; those are obvious, right? If you want to become a tennis player, you've got to be a good tennis player. What are the kind of the mental things that you would say, um, focus on those as they grow up?
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's another chapter we can do in a podcast. Talk about parent and child relationship. I would say, from my own experience, when you're a child, I just decided what I wanted to do because I liked that thing. I liked tennis in my case, and it just came very naturally. I was never forced to do this, or I had pressure from my family of winning or losing. I never had that. I think I'm very lucky because I had like a very positive family environment where nobody asked me for any sort of thing. They just told me just to do what you want to do. That was my message to me. So I think nowadays sometimes what I find, I'm not saying I find it always, but maybe I find parents trying to make their kid like a sport that the parents like, or put extra pressure to do that sport over this other sport that perhaps the kid is maybe keen to also try. So my message and my experience is, when you're a kid, just you have to, I think you have to play the sport that you're really enjoying. Either if it's because your kid is surrounded by their friends, and maybe the coach is a very important figure because he or she is making a very fun and entertaining learning lesson in whatever sport the kid is in. But I think it has to come from totally from the instincts of the child. And like we said at the beginning of this podcast about practicing several sports at the time, two or three sports at the time at the very beginning. So I think that's my main message. I will say to a parent that is trying to get their child in, in the first steps towards some sort of sport.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good message and a good point to leave it on. I think we learned a lot. Certainly, I learned a lot. I really enjoyed chatting to you, John, today. That was really insightful, and in a way, this entire world of, let's say, being elite or close to elite at a sport at a young age is something I had no idea about because I didn't go through it. I don't know any other people who went through it. So it's always really fascinating and really interesting to for me to hear about